Welcome back to Wolf Guitars and Gear, where we help you get fat tones from a skinny wallet. Today, we're going to be taking a look at my first Gibson. As you know, if you've been with this channel for any amount of time, I'm a little bit of a Les Paul fanatic. Whether it comes from listening to a lot of Led Zeppelin and Guns N' Roses growing up, Les Pauls are just in my DNA, and from the first time I sat down and played one, I fell in love instantly with the tone and with the sustain. So a few months back, when I walked into my local store, I was looking to check out some gear, and so I just went to the wall and I grabbed something that was similar to something I knew what I'd have at home. And I wanted to grab a Les Paul because that's just what I gravitate towards. So I went and grabbed what looked to be like just a regular Gibson Les Paul on the wall. And it was this guy right here. And this is a 2019 Studio Tribute Les Paul. So it's a little bit different from a standard Studio, and it's a little bit different from the regular Tribute models. The regular Tribute models actually will have, instead of these dot inlays, that'll have the traditional trapezoid inlays in there, and it will have covered humbuckers as opposed to these open coils. They're both going to be the 490 pickups, which some people don't like, but we'll talk about that a little bit later. So that's one of the main differences. It's a nitro finish on here. It's kind of more of a little bit of a matte type of a look. I mean, it does have some gloss to it, but it's a little bit more subdued in its shine than what you would typically see on like a standard, for example. Obviously it doesn't have the flame top, but I do think it's rather pretty still. If you take a look at that grain, I think that's gorgeous. I love the tobacco burst. It's one of my favorite finishes. So I just grabbed it and plugged it in, like I said, to try out really an amp that I saw there that I had never tried, and I wanted to try the amp. And like I said, I was just going for something familiar. And after I did that, I started actually paying more attention to the guitar than the amp. And I made the mistake of looking at the price tag, and it was actually extremely affordable. It was actually used, and so it was just about in an Epiphone type price range. So it made it an easy decision for me to take this Gibson home and make it my first Gibson. And so you know, that kind of goes into the discussion of why would you choose a lower end Gibson model over an Epiphone. And for me, I think there's a few things. Number one, it's built in America, so I think the quality control is going to be a bit better than it would be with the Epiphones, which tend to be made in China. Not to say that the Chinese guitars aren't great. As you know, I'm a big fan of Epiphone. I'm in no way knocking their product, but let's be honest. If you're getting an Epiphone, if somebody had the opportunity for the same money to put a Gibson in your hands, would you be interested? I think most people would. And so, as most people would do, I decided to go ahead and take the guitar home. And I'm actually really glad I did. So there's a few things that really drew me to this guitar. Normally, I am not a fan of open coil humbuckers, but one of the things I really liked about this guitar is how well it cleaned up. I started on a dirty channel and just rolling down the volumes. I was amazed at how clean it got, and it still was very clear and very articulate. And the whole reason that even kind of caught my eye is because, as I mentioned in a previous video about how I had put the Lambertones in my Epiphone Standard, that kind of was a big letdown, and in some ways it's a love-hate thing. I kind of feel like I may have ruined that guitar from what was my number one guitar and what I had loved for so many years with it, to where, you know, playing this is like, this took me right back to why I love Les Pauls in the first place. It had the power, it had the sustain, it had that grit, but it still cleaned up beautifully, and it did the clean tones really well. You know, it was enough output, but not too much to where it was over the top. You know, there's some other things with this guitar I'd like to point out as well. Number one is the weight. This thing is extremely light. It's been weight relieved, inside here, which makes it just a joy to play compared to a standard Les Paul. It's kind of more along the lines of what you'd expect out of a Tele as far as weight, so very reasonable, really. Then one of the other things about this guitar that is different that I actually really enjoy is, as you can see on the back here, this is a maple neck on a mahogany body, which is rather different. You don't see that on your typical Les Paul standards, but it feels really nice. It plays really nice, and I really like that. I also kind of like the fact that, as you can see, there's no binding on the neck, and so while it's perfectly rolled and feels great, you know, if this guitar ever needed to be refretted, you don't have to worry about damaging the binding to do that. But that brings up another point. These are cryogenically treated frets, so these things should play a long time. And like I said, at the price point that this thing was, this is a Gibson that I can take out and I can play without being scared that it's going to be, you know, so much money if something were to happen to it. It's going to give you that classic Les Paul sound. It's going to look fantastic. It's going to sound fantastic. It'll play fantastic. It's lighter, but it's at a price point that is affordable and within reach of most people. Now, like I said, I got an outstanding deal because I got it used, but even new, these things are going to be going for, you know, right around, you know, $1,100 to $1,200. It's not that bad, so most people can save up and get it. So enough of my talking. Let's get down and hear what this thing sounds like. Well, that's it for today on Wolf Guitars and Gear. I hope you enjoyed this look at the Les Paul Tribute. I think it's something that if you get an opportunity, you shouldn't dismiss it. I think you should pick it up and give it a shot. Like I said, these Alnico 2 pickups really do give it a lot of clarity. It gives that high-end definition that you don't get out of it like an Alnico 5. They are a bit more aggressive than your traditional humbucker that you'd find in a Les Paul, but you can sweeten that right up by rolling the knobs down just a hair and bringing that output down just a little bit, and it'll sweeten right up, and I think you'll be actually pretty impressed by it. So like I said, if you get a chance, check it out. It's a little bit of a modern twist on the Les Paul, but I really enjoy it, and I think it's going to be something that's going to be in my arsenal for quite a while to come. So thanks for stopping by. Let me know in the comments what you like about this. If you haven't already, hit subscribe, share it with your friends, and we'll see you next time here on Wolf Guitars and Gear, where we help you get fat tones from a skinny wallet.